Hey guys, welcome back to Lammon Customs. Now over the years I've been pretty fortunate to have acquired quite a few different classic cars of all different types, make, models, and years. People often wonder, is there any that I've either wished I could have purchased or ones that the proverbial one that got away. And actually that is true. I've had pretty good luck with a lot of cars, but there's been a few of them that have not been so lucky, have not worked out very well. So fair to tell you about one of those today. Now back when I was in high school, I really had a thing for the Tri-5 Chevys, particularly 55, 57. We got an upcoming video that's going to be coming out shortly talking about my trials and tribulations with the 57 Chevy. But this one, I haven't really talked to a whole lot of people about my issues with the 55 Chevy. So I was actually looking for either 55 or 57, and I actually found a 55 for sale locally here in town. And keep in mind, this is back when I was in high school, so we're talking like 30 some years ago. A guy had it listed for sale, just with a for sale sign in the window. That's it. Stopped, took a look at it. It was a 55 Chevy four-door sedan. It was kind of a mint green color. And the thing that was really interesting about this car is it had what they call California chrome. So it had extensions on the bumpers, had every option that you could get on a model like that. It had a pull-out tissue holder under the dash. The thing was actually in pretty good shape. It ran. The only issue with it is it had a dent in the quarter panel. There was a guy that actually owned an insurance company at the time. He was selling it. So because they had totaled the car out. Supposedly, lady had owned it since original. She got in an accident with it. They totaled it out, and they ended up with the car. So he wasn't asking very much for it. I think he was asking at the time, I want to say maybe 1,500, something like that. It wasn't a whole lot. Granted, you got to keep in mind this was almost 30 years ago, so be maybe say like $4,000 or $5,000 today. I looked at it. He started up. It ran pretty decent and stuff. I mean, this wasn't a pristine car by any means. It would have been a daily driver or could have been fixed up, but it had good potential. There wasn't a lot of body rot, a lot of damage or anything and stuff other than the quarter panel. The quarter panel wasn't even that bad. It was a dent that honestly you probably could have pushed out pretty simple and wouldn't even look that bad. I mean, it wasn't anything that affected the car. It wasn't where the frame was tweaked or anything. It wasn't something where you'd have to replace the quarter panel. It wasn't even that bad. Just a ding. I mean, it looked like something that, in all honesty, somebody could have done with throwing a ball against the car or something. I mean, it wasn't even that big of damage. I really thought about doing it. I talked him down in price. I think we got down to like $1,200 if I remember correctly. He's willing to sell it for that to me. And I really wanted to get it. But I really wanted to also get a 57 Chevy. I've always liked the cars with the fins, and 57 Chevy, yeah, right, wrong, or indifferent, is kind of the iconic car of the 1950s. When you think of the 1950s and automobiles, probably the first thing that pops into everybody's head is the 57 Chevy Bel Air. I'd actually found a 57 Chevy for sale locally, and they were asking quite a bit more. And in fact, they're asking about double. The guy was asking $2,500 for that car. So I had to make the decision. Do I go ahead and make a deal on the 55, or do I go with the 57? Unfortunately, I made the mistake of going with the 57. And we'll talk about that in another video, all the details and the nightmare that became. So for the meantime, I passed on the 55 Chevy. The car, soon after that, kind of disappeared, never saw it again, figured it got sold. Kind of always regretted that, especially when things kind of fell through on the 57 Chevy, and that turned into just an absolute nightmare. Fast forward almost 2 decades later, and my daughter was in high school at the time, and for some reason she actually kind of fell in love with the 55 Chevy. She never really did tell me what her reasoning was, but hey, we all have our favorite cars. We were at a car show here locally in town, and they used to do a mini swap meet. Fortunately, they don't do that anymore. The year that they were doing this swap meet, though, there was a gentleman there, and he had different car parts and stuff. We also had photos of cars. Didn't really think much of it and stuff. My daughter got looking at him though and found out and talking to him that the photos of the cars were actually cars he owned that were for sale. So she came and told me all excitedly that the guy actually had a 55 Chevy that he had out at his place and it was for sale, and I want to know if we'd be willing to go look at it. So car show got done, I think a couple days later, or a week later, where it was, so we decided to go out there, got a hold of the guy, drove out, and it was actually out by my dad's farm. So we ended up driving out there, I get to the guy's place, and he had several classic cars there, and of course the 57 Chevy, you know, iconic car, it stuck out. So we pull in the yard and we get out and start walking over, take a look at the car, and I told my daughter, I said, now play it cool, so don't get all excited and stuff. I said, you know, see if he'll come down on price and negotiate. You don't want to sound, you know, too desperate or too excited because, you know, you probably won't get a good deal. So I was trying to give her some pointers on this. So just play it cool, act almost non-interested, and see what sort of deal you can make. Well, as we got closer and I got looking at the car, I realized that this car seemed familiar, something about it. It was kind of a mint green car. As I got looking, I noticed it had the California chrome around the bumpers. You know, this option. It's not a very common option. I've gone to a lot of car shows, and I can't even think of how many times I've actually even seen it on a car at a car show. I noticed right away, and then it dawned on me, this had to be the same car from back when I was in high school. I mean, there was no doubt, but I had to confirm it. So I started looking at the car. Sure enough, it had the dent on the quarter panel. I opened it up, looked inside, and right on the dash was that tissue holder. And at this point, I'm excited. I'm the one that's having a hard time playing it cool. I'm about bouncing up and down. I'm so excited that this is the same car. This is the car that I almost bought in high school. Now my daughter, who was in high school, was looking at buying a car and wanted this. So we met with the seller and talked to him about the car, and he brought up that he had used to be an insurance salesman, and then I knew 100% that this was the exact same car, you know. And I think I actually mentioned to him that I had originally looked at buying this car way back when I was in high school. We kind of talked about stuff, and he was asking, I think $2,500 for it now, which goes to show I should have bought it, and I could have bought it for $1,200. But he was asking $2,500. My daughter had, I think, close to that saved up. I think she had at least 2,000 saved up, maybe a little more. And we looked at it and stuff, and I was just beaming. I was so excited by this car because, you know, to me that was a sign, man. That should have bought it in high school, it didn't. Now here's a second opportunity. It should become part of the family collection. So we thanked him for his time, so we think about it, you know, and walked to the car, and I was probably more excited than she was, honestly. We got back home, we got talking about stuff, and then she kind of changed her mind a little bit and wasn't sure she wanted to spend her money. Didn't know she wanted the car. And I told her, I said, you know, this is by far one of the best deals I've seen. It was a good price. You know, the car is still in remarkable condition for its age. You know, it looked a little bit more sun-baked, you know, in the years since, but overall it wasn't bad. It still had the engine, still ran, everything. She waited. I want to give her first choice to buy since that was the car she was looking for. Unfortunately, we waited a little too long. I think, you know, close to a month or something had gone by, and finally I said, well, I'm going to buy it then for myself. I'd kind of gone out of the Tri-5 Chevy thing by that point, but could not pass up this car. I felt it was meant to be. So I got a hold of the guy that was selling it and talked to him, and unfortunately, it had already been sold. He had unfortunately sold it to somebody else, and they lived out of town in another town here in the state, but that's where the car went. So I was kind of deflated, honestly. I was really excited by that car and thought it was meant to be, but apparently it wasn't. But they always say third time's a charm, so I guess if I ever see the car available for sale again, I'm going to jump on it. I'm buying it. You know, not really going to care what it costs. I think, you know, I should have bought it. Had two opportunities to, and man, I regret not buying that one. So yes, I have had a car here and there that I have regretted passing on. If I also had something I sold, I've regretted selling. But 55 Chevy, I know I'll end up with one at some point, but boy, I sure would still like to get that one, that mint green one. I haven't seen it at any shows. Suppose the person that bought it was going to restore it, so hopefully they did. Hopefully they just park it or chop it up for parts or something. But hopefully it'll show up, and if it shows up for sale, maybe I can actually purchase it and add it to my collection. So we'll wrap it up for this episode of Shop Talk. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. That really does help the channel out. We are going to be working on offering some merchandise coming up here shortly. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next video.